Hello, all. Maureen Curry here. I will continue a little bit with the Baroque that just slides right into the Rococo period. As you'll recall, we looked at the palace of Louis the XIV in the Baroque period, which was a very ornate palace after he moved his headquarters from Paris to Versailles. Um, King Louis the XIV thought of himself as the sun god, sun king, and he thought everything radiated out from himself, and that's why he built this elaborate uh, palace in Versailles, where he could surround himself with everything that reminded himself about his absolute rule. In Versailles, we learned about the very opulent and luminous Hall of Mirrors that Louis designed. And when he walked down that hall, there was windows on the right and mirrors on the left, and he could see himself in the mirror, and he could also see the reflection of all the land he ruled outside his palace. He thought of himself as the sun god. He thought of himself as Apollo. In England, we looked at the Restoration style, which was sort of the late Baroque, and it was very subdued, very classical, based on the Palladian influences from the Renaissance. So you can see those characteristics in the English Restoration style. You can see the ceilings were very compartmentalized, a lot of paneling on the walls, taste for Oriental porcelain as decorations. That was also found. A lot of moldings attached to the walls that had classical elements. And some of the walls were painted scenery that looked like columns and pilasters, but really painted like Trompe-l'oeil painting. In the English Restoration style, you see the very classical elements in that compartmented ceiling, also translated to some of the pieces, like the heavy chests and so forth. Chairs were more, they were curving and wood carving, but a little less ornate than we saw in the French Baroque. But definitely it's an influence from China and Japan as well. The English and marriage style interior decorating was a lot more simpler, flat forms, curving lines, a little bit more delicate legs and arms. You can see more of the chest of drawers here and the different examples of the William and Mary style in these images. And of course the continuing interest in Japanese-inspired painting, lacquerware, and so forth. So the Rococo follows on from the Baroque. It got started with Louis XIV and carried on to the other French monarch, excuse me. This was during the period of the Enlightenment as well, so movement to more scientific inquiry, beginning of more industrial manufacturing of goods. And people were on the move too, making grand tours around Europe and migrating to America too. So it was really sort of a growing, more of a global perspective, like we're seeing today. The Rococo was in the 18th century, followed on from the Baroque. It was very shell-like and all over surface detail. You can see this in this French salon picture here. That's very organic. The ceiling is all covered with plaster incrustation. It looks like shell-like plaster, rockwork. Almost looks like it's organic. It's like it's growing and it's alive. It's very animated, very airy, lively. Furniture is diminutive. It's all about the organic surface detail on the walls. You can see the Rococo architecture, even on the exterior, was ornate, organic, that you can still see that shell-like plaster covering the surface. Of course, Rococo was more of a feminine style. It was more soft creams, pinks, yellows. Almost looks like lace on the walls. There were a lot of satins and silks, brocades and tapestries covering the furniture. Here are some Rococo motifs. You can see the rooms, the wall paneling were all planned out. A lot of gilt gold treatments, and then once again we have an image of the very organic Rococo ceiling. The S curves and C curves were very dominant in Rococo designs. It's a very ornate Rococo room. You see the classical elements repeated. You see the balustrade up there and the brackets underneath supporting the balcony, the broken pediment over the fireplace. This one is more of a classical, not so much gold, but the chandelier for sure is pretty ornate. And you can see carriaged columns on the fireplace here. So the interest in this all-over surface detail in the Rococo period. Also interest in chinoiserie, things from Asia and China. You can see this room is definitely very much influenced like that. So interiors had that ornate wall paneling, usually some gold trim. Ceilings were very ornate and very organic. Furniture had the curving lines, the S-curves, often covered with, some of the chests would be covered with gilt bronze trim. You see some sort of influence from Asia with the screens. But the furnishings were definitely curving lines, a lot of use of gold. When you move on to England, you see the Queen Anne move. There's a little more takeoff from the Rococo with the curving lines, but a little more subdued. And the back of the chairs look like it's ribbon work. Usually they were made out of mahogany, which was a very exotic wood and very hard to get. But you can see the designs of the chairs were designed to be comfortable for the human body. The camelback sofa was a Chippendale invention. As we go back, the tilt-top table. In England, the lacquer desk with influence from China. Side table with very ornate Rococo trim. Chinese Chippendale beds. Influence of, so these are definitely the draped bedding, you'll see that. So I wish you all the best for a fun exploration of the Rococo period and what follows and how that carries into other styles. And I will see you on canvas. Take care, everybody.